Welcome to Decoded by Christina, a series where each video will focus on one HTML or CSS concept. But this is a bonus video that I've created to provide a basic overview of the web development landscape and some common HTML and CSS terminology. Let's get started. When I started doing web development in the early 2000s, it wasn't uncommon for one person to do everything. The job title was often referred to as webmaster or web designer or developer. These days, there's often more specialization because the web has become so much more advanced. So in reference to developer roles, you may have heard the terms front-end, back-end, and full stack. While all of these roles work together, these terms basically refer to different areas of web development. Front-end refers to the languages that run in the browser, while back-end languages run on a server. Most developer jobs are also broken down into these categories. Front-end developers work with browser-based languages, HTML for displaying content, CSS for adding styles, and JavaScript for interactivity. With the growth and popularity of JavaScript-based frameworks such as React and Angular, front-end technologies can also be used to create functionality that was once reserved for back-end languages. You may also hear these languages referred to as client-side languages, because the browser is also referred to as the client. Back-end developers are responsible for the behind-the-scenes functionality, such as submitting payment and order information when you're making a purchase online or when you're logging into your account. Back-end developers work with languages that run on a server. Some common ones are Python, PHP, C#, Ruby, or Java. Back-end devs also work with database technologies as well, such as MySQL or MongoDB. You don't need to know all of these languages to be a back-end developer, and many will specialize in one or two languages and may have some familiarity with others. There's also a third category, full stack, which usually refers to someone who works with both front-end and back-end languages. So it's not uncommon for a full stack developer to have skills using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and one or two back-end languages. So how do you know what skills you should focus on? Well, if you're more interested on the visual side of development, work on gaining front-end skills. If you prefer the logic of building functionality, then focus on back-end skills. Or learn a bit of both and see if maybe full stack is the best path for you. It can feel overwhelming trying to learn everything, but just start with the foundational languages in the area you're most drawn to and take it one step at a time. I'll be focusing on HTML and CSS in this series, so let's take a look at some of the common terminology and concepts for these two languages, starting with HTML. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Hypertext refers to the link that connects web pages to one another. Markup is how HTML is written, the structure and format using HTML tags, which consist of an HTML element name surrounded by a left and right angled bracket. When learning any new language, start by getting familiar with the grammar rules and the building blocks of that language. When writing code, the syntax refers to these rules and patterns. As mentioned earlier, HTML tags are used to define the HTML elements, and the syntax requires each element name to be enclosed within a left and right angled bracket. An opening tag is used to mark the beginning of the element, a closing tag marks the end of the element, and must always include a / before the element name. The content to be displayed in the browser is included between the tags. HTML tags are often written inside of other tags, so when you're nesting a tag, make sure to close the tags from inside out. For the browser, writing all the tags on one line doesn't matter, but for us, it's convention to use whitespace and indentation to make it easier to read. Each nested element is usually written on its own line and indented once. This will organize the code and make it easier to see which tags are nested and where the tags open and close. But there are also times where nested tags are written in the same line. Every HTML element is categorized as either an inline or block level element. What does that mean? Well, this is going to be the quickest definition ever, but in short, when inline elements are shown in the browser, they're displayed on the same line. So when formatting the HTML, nested inline elements are usually included in the same line as well, in line. When block level elements are displayed in the browser, they always start on a new line. So, when formatting the HTML, block elements are usually written on their own line and indented when they're nested. As your code gets more detailed, formatting will help you stay organized and make your code easier to read. There are many different types of HTML elements. Some are text-based, such as paragraphs, headings, and lists. There are other types of elements used to create the page structure and to organize content into related groupings, such as the div, header, or footer elements. There are also void elements, which aren't used to define structure or content. They are the content. While HTML tags are usually written in pairs, void elements are written using only an opening tag. A common void element is the BR tag, used to create a line break within a block of text. In the previous version of HTML, a / was included after the tag name. This is why void elements are also sometimes referred to as self-closing tags. The latest version of HTML doesn't require this, but you may still see the old syntax being used. Both formats are valid, but I recommend using the most current syntax. These different HTML elements were created for web browsers to interpret the meaning of the content, referred to as semantics. Most HTML elements have semantic meanings, but there are a few that don't. For example, the header element is used to group introductory page content, such as an H1 tag, which is used to define the main heading of the page. On the other hand, the div and span elements don't have any specific meanings and are usually used to group content for CSS styling purposes. Writing semantic HTML is basically you communicating with the browser. Sometimes you'll need to add some extra information to an HTML element by adding an attribute. For example, the href attribute is used to add a URL to the link tag. Adding this information will actually take you to another web page or website when you select the link. Without it, the link will go nowhere. Attributes can also be used to change the behavior of an element, like making a form field a required field. By adding this attribute, the user won't be able to submit the form until they fill out all the required inputs. Attributes can also be used with any type of element and are added to the opening HTML tag, separated from the element name with a space. They're usually written as attribute name equals value, with the value contained in single or double quotes. Some attributes can also be used with or without a value. When using multiple attributes, order doesn't matter, but they should be separated by a space. Sometimes you may want to leave notes in the code for yourself or for others when working on a team or on an open source project. You can do so with HTML comments, which can only be seen in the source code and will not display in the browser. In addition to leaving notes, comments are often used for hiding code for later use and organizing the document. To write a comment, start with a left-angled bracket, followed by an exclamation mark and 2 dashes. Then close the comment with 2 more dashes and the right-angled bracket. Any type of characters can be included as a comment as long as it remains within the opening and closing syntax. There's a lot more to learn about HTML, and I hope to focus more on specific concepts throughout this series. But that pretty much sums up the general HTML concepts and common terminology. Now, let's jump into an overview of CSS. While HTML elements are used to tell the browser, hey, this bit of content is a heading or this bit of content is a button, CSS is used to control how the elements look by defining the colors, the size, as well as the positioning of the element, and much more. It stands for Cascading Style Sheet and was created to separate content from presentation. Let's take a look at the different parts that make up a CSS rule set. Selectors are used to select HTML elements to apply the styles to. A declaration block is everything within and including the curly braces and is used to group all the declarations for that selector. A declaration is the actual style rule, which is written using a property and value, separated by a colon. Each declaration must also end with a semicolon to indicate that the instruction is complete. A CSS property defines which style is applied to the element. Values are specific to and define the characteristics of that property. So for the color property, a color value, such as blue, can be used. And in this example, body is the selector, width is the property, and 100% is the value. Many CSS property values can be defined using a longhand or shorthand syntax. When using shorthand, multiple longhand properties can be set using just one property. This is generally more efficient because you'll end up writing less CSS overall, and it's usually best to write just what you need. But there's always exceptions to the rule, and sometimes using the longhand syntax is a better choice, especially if you want to define a more specific style. In the following example, just using the shorthand padding syntax will apply 20 pixels to all 4 sides using one declaration. But if you only wanted to add padding to the top, then using the one longhand property padding top may be more appropriate. I'll be diving deeper into this concept as I discuss specific CSS properties throughout this series. Comments can also be written in CSS. Just like HTML comments, it's used to help us read our code better. Use it to leave notes or for organizing your code blocks. Comments can also be used to hide a line or a block of CSS. This technique is often used for debugging and testing by temporarily hiding different declarations from the browser without actually deleting the code. Start with a slash and asterisk and close the comment in the opposite order. To uncomment the code, delete the slash and asterisk surrounding the declarations. Just like HTML, whitespace, line breaks, and indentation are used to format CSS to make it easier for us to read. A common formatting convention is to write each declaration on its own line and indent it with one tab key space to make the groupings easier to see. The white space between the property and value is not required, but can also be added for readability. When white space is required in a value, it's used to separate multiple values used with a single property. In the following example, the space between the property and value is not required, but the space between the two values is required. Everybody has a personal preference when formatting their code. You'll probably develop your own style too. Just try to be consistent and use an organizational style that makes sense to you. I've included some extra resources regarding formatting tips in the video description. That pretty much wraps up this HTML and CSS overview. I'll be posting videos regularly about specific HTML elements or CSS properties where I'll dive deeper into each one. So subscribe to get notifications. And if you're interested in doing a full course, I recommend my CSS Essential Training course on LinkedIn Learning. Until next time, bye!